So I'm glad you're getting to participate again in another circuit for the peer-to-peer. So this is the peer-to-peer brief. And I'll just go over real quickly and remind you the rationale and a little description about peer-to-peer. And again, it's the opportunity for Rachel to share strategy skills that she's learned in the circuit to a peer. And this will help to support Rachel's confidence and competence, as well as engaging somebody else, a peer, in the skill building with fidelity as a goal. And so we've had this experience before, so you get a little bit more familiar with how this works, both of you, in terms of you sharing the strategy and you receiving the information and thinking about how you might want to use it. And again, the power of peers is always that you're equals. You know, you're on the same playing field. You're working together as peers, and so that makes you equals in the process, and that way you can give support to each other even if there's not a coach available. Okay, do you have any questions about that?
No.
Okay, and so, oh, excuse me, I just lost my place. It's because it's now on two sides instead of one side. Okay, so like we did before, I as the coach and Rachel is the coachee and you're the peer. We're meeting outside the classroom setting so that we're uninterrupted. And have that time to make a plan. And actually what it is the coachee and the peer using that peer-to-peer planning template, and you have a copy of it, you two are making the plan. And I can facilitate, but I'm really just here to facilitate that. It's your plan. And I'll support you how I can. And then, so we'll complete the peer-to-peer activity planning template, and then when you do the activity together, then I'm not present for that, but then I will be back to do the debrief to hear how it went. So now, I wanted to talk about some strengths and some needs around this particular strategy. And so in relationship to this specific strategy and the skills around it, so you're familiar with that Rachel's practice-based learning objective was to write or to have a scripted story to help children who are having difficulties in transitioning from home to school, right? Do you want to tell her any more about that, or has she been following?
Not as much as the past one. So I ended up kind of looking at a couple scripted stories and then wrote a scripted story because I really wanted it to be kind of specific to the children's garden, what I thought our kids did. And was because it's about getting ready for school and it's kind of subjective what kids do. I had 2 different pages where they can move things around to kind of tell their story as a way to kind of try to individualize it for different kids. And so then I used that book and identified 4 different kids who were having a rough time with the getting dropped off and coming to school, either by parent report or by teacher observation. So those were kind of my 4 specific kids that I wanted to try to pull into the group. And then I read the book in the class, and so my skill was specifically like, how am I going to introduce it to them, give them a warning that it's coming up, then read the book with them and invite them to stay for a discussion. if they wanted to or not. And in the midst of that, I just did it kind of during a free play time, and so other kids could come if they wanted to and listen if they wanted to, but it was really kind of only the kids out of those 4 who were kind of required to come. We kind of talked about some contingency plans of what happens if, it's like World War III to get them there. I said at this point I'd probably let that go because the plan is the book and not how to get a kid to story time. But we didn't end up running into that as being an issue. So I did practice it with Cindy and Mary and Annette. When I did my practice, I practiced with them as adults, and then I went in and did it with the kids last Thursday. Yeah,
We got to act.
they were my adult children. And actually the kids did just about as nice as you guys did. They were like super quiet and attentive, and it went really well. It went really well. So that's kind of a little basics of what I did.
Yeah.
And then try to find a way to data record. Who's listened to it, how many times. So if it really is something that, if we want to show over time whether it's making a difference or not, then we can see, well, how many times have they actually heard this, how many times have they actually interacted with the book, and do we see a change in behavior.
So Emily, do you have any questions about what she did, or?
No, I think I understand.
Okay.
So.
All right, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to each think of 2 strengths and 2 needs that you might have around scripted stories. So around this specific strategy, and I'll let Rachel go first. What are 2 strengths that pop in your mind around this strategy that you've been working with?
That I had taken a little mini training with Virginia Kyle on scripted stories, so I was kind of familiar with scripted stories and how to write them and how they were supposed to work. So I had that background, and that was definitely a strength. And then just getting to see more of that through Pyramid Plus, having that kind of reaffirmed and having more examples available to me to be able to use and work with. Those are 2 strengths.
And may I say something about the first one? So it really showed, so besides the trainings that she's had with Virginia, and then other information she got from Pyramid Plus trainings, and then the coaching on topic that I did with some information, more information around scripted stories, she created a really good scripted story that the kids are totally engaged with. It's just a wonderful book. So
Needs around scripted stories. The first thing that pops into my head, and this isn't a need that I have now, but I'm seeing if I have kids with specific kinds of disabilities, then I would need some extra feedback from BOCES and stuff about how to make the book work for a kid. I've got 2 pages that'll work for a kid who doesn't communicate real well, because they can kind of communicate with pictures, but what about the rest of the book? If they're having fine motor problems, I think of puzzles and how easy or difficult it is to grab things, different stuff like that. I would need some resources for BOCES for those kinds of things. And I guess the other thing that I think of, because part of my implementation plan is that if a child is having a real persistent problem and we're seeing that using the book here isn't really making a difference, then getting that book into the hands of the parent, and then it would be the how do I really help teach the parent how to use the book. That would be a need, not something I haven't done parent training kinds of things. So that communication with the parent instead of, here's the book, have fun, but really how to make that book usable for a parent, that they could do that with their kids, and that would be meaningful and easy for the parent to not be this scary task.
Yeah, those are two that are really good to know in terms of moving on and what could happen in the future, around scripted story. But I also wanted to mention too that, just like in the First Circuit where she was meeting the skills on the skill set rubric, and she met 8 out of the 9 skills in live coaching. And then, knowing what she might want to tweak or modify to meet all of the skills. And like I said, just an incredible book, laminated. I think you've made 3 copies, at least 2 copies.
I have 2 copies.
With the idea of maybe a 3rd copy that children can take home. So, Emily, what do you feel are a couple of your strengths going into this around scripted stories?
I think one was I have been through the Pyramid Plus training, so I definitely have the basics of what they need to incorporate.
Right.
And then I think another strength would just be I've worked with both of you, in the past doing things, so I understand kind of how the process works, kind of thing.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
And can you think of a couple of needs around scripted stories?
Needs? I don't know if this is technically a need, but it just comes to my mind is time. It's going to take a lot of time for me personally, because I don't have that much experience in it, but I understand it, so I'd have to sit down and it would take me a long time to, create one and do all that kind of stuff. So I just think of time right away.
You told me another need, and I specifically didn't say it because you're the one who told it to me. I thought, I'm not going to steal her need, but you were...
Give her a hint.
Yeah,
Give me a hint.
you were mentioning the body of kids that you're going to have next year, and specifically those kids being ASL learners. You were talking about having Letty help you out with an aspect of the book. The language of the book.
Right. Yeah, just communication with, how do you, I don't speak a lot of Spanish, so having it for me and them to understand how am I going to get that across in both languages.
Yeah, and she was talking about
Okay.
when we were first kind of talking about this, and if she would want to do the peer-to-peer, she was mentioning asking Letty to translate,
Right.
to be able to translate, and using her as a resource.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just recognizing those needs is really a strength in itself, and the fact that you're so willing to learn, obviously willing to learn because the Second Circuit, you've been peer, have done peer-to-peer. And so I know we talked a little bit about learning styles during the First Circuit. Do you remember a little bit about that? And about the memletics, we talked about memletics. Did you ever have a chance to do that, answer the questions?
I did.
Okay. I was just curious if you did have a chance to do that. But just in reviewing the learning styles, do you have any thoughts about your own learning style or teaching style around scripted stories? Well, Rachel used her one that's solitary again with creating the story herself. Then there's some sample stories out there. There's some that you can just use that are already made for.
Yeah.
She really wanted to make something very specific for her situation. But anyway, it's just always something to always be keeping in mind as our learning styles, as we do with children too.
I remember you last time talking about liking hands-on things.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
touching and playing with
Visual
it,
and
and
seeing it, then doing it. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we can go ahead and plan the learning activity using that template. And we each have one. And I'm going to try very hard to not not say too much to let you two plan it.
We'll try very hard to plan it.
So again, with the template, you've got your learning objective that's measurable with action steps and a timeline.
All right.
So before I completely let you guys take over, I just want to ask Emily, so related to what Rachel did in the circuit, do you have any ideas of something you would like to do as an activity?
Not off the top of my head, I can't just think of one. I know that there is, the same with Rachel, having the kids come in the classroom and having that, I need to go home, those feelings, and how do you cope with that? So I think that was definitely one for us, or for me as well. But I can't think of, I think I'd like to see how one is really done, and then maybe I'd be able to be like, oh, I see another area that this would work really well.
Okay, so when you say you like to see how one is done, do you mean creating the actual book or using the book? Or
Both, probably.
Okay. And how would you like it to be measured or evaluated? Do you remember how you can either put that in the objective itself, or there's that option to do the activity evaluation?
I think the activity evaluation will be fine.
Okay, so before you leave today, I'll make sure that you do the pre-number one. Okay, so, all right.
Okay, so I felt like what I was hearing when you were talking, and you were talking about your needs, and one of the needs you were talking about is like the time creating it. And so here's some ideas that I'm just going, I'd like to just kind of throw out there and see if anything resonates with you.
Okay.
So one is that I have the scripted story, so I can show you that and kind of how I went about making it, and then read it to the kids in the class, to kind of go through how it was made, and then seeing it done. My other thought is looking at examples of a bunch of different scripted stories, and almost like a compare contrast of different scripted stories. So like what they contain, some of those basic elements that we learned in the pyramid model, and how they are in different things, and then work on creating a story together, to do kind of like a hands-on experience thing there, or do kind of a basic make a scripted story together for a need in the class, and then try it out. So, or use an already made one, and use that out in the class. So there's like the Tucker Turtle scripted story. There's one called Super Friends. I know that's on there, and we could just use one of those in the mixed stage, or pick kind of a specific need and sit down together and make a scripted story for a specific need, and do it with the kids this week and see what happens. So those are some just different ideas that I have.
What do you think, Emily?
I like the idea of the last one, really trying out some myself, kind of seeing how they're going to work using the scripted stories that are already made, just so I'm starting to feel comfortable with them, instead of just, let's write one.
Okay.
And but I do also want to listen to yours and see how it was with the kids as well, and kind of even you tell me the process of what you had to go through to do it, just so I maybe have a better understanding of it. Could we do those?
Yeah, I think you'll be surprised at that. I think it looks harder than it is.
Then it is.
I think it's something that you're going to go, oh,
I did that.
I can do this. I really do. Okay, so as our basic idea, I'm going to like jot down notes before trying to put it together in some kind of period. That Rachel shares process of writing the scripted story and models reading it with kids.
Or we don't even have to do it with kids. I'm fine if we do it, you just pretending the kids are there, or whichever works for us.
Okay.
It's easier, because I know the kids in the classroom have already heard it in the next age room, so either one will work. I think I get the idea.
Okay, with kids or just the two of us.
Okay.
I'm just leaving everything open right now, and then choose an already created scripted story. Now, is that something that you would want me to model, or is that something that you would want us to choose and then you go for it, or me model it and you go for it, or what do you see with that, Ricky?
I think I could just go for it, but I think if I'm having any questions about it, that you could be like, oh, this is where you could do this kind of thing. Maybe just
choose an already
talking
scripted
about
story.
it.
So maybe like meet before you do it,
Yeah.
and kind of talk through it, and okay, choose an already scripted story, and go through it together, for lack of a better word, to build family confidence in doing story. All right. So now doing this, that Emily would like to learn about scripted stories. I'm thinking of the learning objective now and how to really word that.
We have a lot of it done, just not the timeline.
Yeah. So Emily will learn about scripted stories by hearing Rachel's writing process and watching Rachel model reading the story, and using a scripted story from the Cephal website, just because I know that that's a place,
Yeah.
or from maybe
That's the one
Pyramid
that I
Plus.
Building blocks has
Resources.
some too, several.
So maybe we can put like PPA resources, so then we can leave ourselves open to finding one that you really like.
Okay.
And supporting, I'm trying to think of how to say that. Emily will choose a scripted story from a PPAA resource, and how do we say, discuss with Rachel and share, work together, collaborate. I'm trying to think what's the word I'm looking
And
for.
sometimes it helps to have an example, like if you wanted to review the example that you did the first circuit, would that help, Rachel?
What do you mean?
I mean, I don't want to throw you off. Like your learning objective.
Oh, of the learning objective?
Yeah, Emily will watch behavior rehearsal and live coaching of the interview strategy on video with Rachel by May 8th.
That is helpful.
For that
Okay.
reason, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it helps me, that's just my learning, one of my learning styles is to see examples.
Okay, so I'm thinking,
And not changing what she wants, you know, right?
Emily will gain confidence and knowledge, I might change those words later, of scripted stories. I will scripted stories. About scripted stories by, and then it will be reviewing Rachel's writing process with her, seeing Rachel model a scripted story reading,
And is that live?
and by choosing a scripted story from the Pyramid Plus approach resources to review with Rachel and read to kids on her own. So right now I have Emily will learn about scripted stories by reviewing Rachel's writing process with her, seeing Rachel model a scripted story reading, and by choosing a scripted story from the Pyramid Plus approach resources to review with Rachel and then read to the kids on her own. And then we need a time frame.
And is the reading to the kids also part of the peer-to-peer? Or is it so that she knows how to, or was that actually part of it?
Would you like that to be part of it?
It doesn't matter. I mean, it can be part of it, or it can be just training for it.
How much pressure do you want? Let's talk time frames, and because maybe that'll answer it for us. Because right now, tentatively, we have set our next meeting for Friday, 3:30. So that's tentative. So it'll be, what can we do?
This Friday?
What can we do this week?
Before Friday.
Probably. Well, I'm gonna be gone on Friday.
You're gonna be gone on Friday.
Yeah,
Okay.
I won't be here, so.
Okay, well, we can reschedule.
Yeah. Okay.
And will you be here Wednesday, Thursday?
I'll be here.
Okay. So do you think that you could have a story chosen out if we came in, because I can come in tomorrow, we can find a time to meet tomorrow, and I could go over my story with you, and I can read that to the kids. And what I was doing is reading it to them before breakfast, so that would probably be what I would do. So I'd probably read it to them before breakfast, and then usually it seems like there's like an extra time around nap. Were you experiencing that? Some extra time around nap?
A little bit, yeah.
Where we might be able to get,
Yeah.
to be able to sit down and talk about how I did it and look at some different resources and choose one.
Yeah, we could
But
do
then
that.
it would be, could you read it on Thursday, or would it just be, let's choose it and let's talk about it and this is how I would do it, and then, okay, further on down the line, I'll try that out.
Let's do that for right now, just so we don't overwhelm ourselves. We have to do
Because
this.
that's a lot pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to use it, but we can.
Read to kids on her own in the future. Well, and you'll have several weeks that you can do this, and
Yeah.
So Emily will learn about scripted stories. That's as far as I have.
By reviewing Rachel's writing process with her. If we need to be specific, then it will be reviewing Rachel's writing process of title I Go to School with her. That's
That's
to be
good.
very specific. Seeing Rachel model. Again, insert title I Go to School scripted story reading. And by choosing a scripted story from the PPA resources to review with Rachel and then read to kids on her own in the future.
Would you like to see her model that story? So she's going to talk about the process of writing that story, and then is that the same story you'd like to see modeled?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're all on the same
Yeah.
page.
All right, and then does that feel like feasible to you to do that by this Thursday?
Yes.
Was there something
Or
after?
actually, let's say by Friday, because that's like, Thursday midnight to get it done.
Which is the 12th, is that right?
Friday, June, I have to look it up. I don't know what today is, it is the 12th. It will be the 12th. Friday, June 12th.
Is there anything after comma, seeing Rachel model reading, I go to school? And then is it by June 12th?
No, and by choosing,
Oh. Is that?
by choosing a scripted story from a Pyramid Plus Approach resource.
Okay.
To review with Rachel and read to kids on her own in the future.
Okay. Does that seem doable?
Yeah.
Reasonable?
Friday,
In that
June
amount of time?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Now we just need some actions.
All right, so Rachel will bring a copy of I Go to School. And I want to say both a physical copy and the computer file. Because if we're really getting into the how did you do this, I can show you on the computer file how I did that. So the resource would be the computer.
And your finished copy. And your
Yeah,
laminated
and
copy.
the book.
Okay.
Then Rachel will, when will be Wednesday, June, tomorrow's the 10th?
Yes.
Wednesday, June 10th. And Rachel will model reading I Go to School. And for that resource, I'll need the book.
When were you going to go over
Let's
the
see,
process with her?
On Wednesday,
Okay.
Wednesday, June 10th. And on Wednesday, June 10th, I am modeling it for her.
Okay.
And my goal would to be to do that at 8:30 a.m. So that when you're getting in here at 8:30 to do that before they go. Now, I'm thinking, would you like to see, just see how I do that, or would you like to see how I do that in relation to the skill set rubric? I'm saying that like you know what a skill set rubric is, with all the different steps defined of how I'm gathering materials, Like just to see the different steps? Do you want to score the different steps, or do you just want to see it done?
I think I just want to see it, just to get an idea of it.
Okay.
You need to score it.
Okay. I was just wondering if I need to bring a copy of that rubric with all the steps. And so then the other resource would be scripted stories. Scripted story examples. And would you like me to have some of those scripted story examples from Cephal and Building
Sure.
Blocks, or do you want to hunt for some?
Either way, we can hunt, or we can hunt for them. I think it'd be pretty easy just to get on the computer and look through some different ones.
Okay, so that'll be Rachel and Emily, and we can hunt together. So I will bring, Rachel will provide the computer. And I think what I want to do is have bookmarked on there the Cephal and the Building Blocks websites.
Okay.
So we can just click those open and hunt and see what captures your interest as far as the stories that are available. And that will be by Wednesday, June 10th.
I think it'll help me too to get a copy of that when you're finished, because
I
I
can-
haven't captured everything.
I can photocopy it.
Okay.
All right. Scripted stories by reviewing the